Is the neighborhood park really nature? What about the farm fields right outside your city? Are those nature? How do we define what nature is? Our answer to that question has changed again and again over thousands of years, and literature has been there every step of the way. In this video, I'm going to explore how literature has helped shape our perception of nature and what that means for the way we interact with nature and the environment today. To begin, we're going to head back to the biblical times, and there's two very distinct depictions of nature in the Bible. In Genesis, the Bible opens up with one of the most famous depictions of nature ever. And it goes, "The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it." In this picture, nature is a divinely designed garden. It's abundant, it's rich, it's there for us to tend to. Humanity's role in nature is to be a steward, to tend to it, to make it better. But the Bible also paints another picture. Forest and wilderness become pictures of chaos, danger, and divine judgment. In Jeremiah, the forest is a lair for predators. "Therefore a lion from the forest will attack them. A wolf from the desert will ravage them. A leopard will lie in wait near their towns." In Psalms 74:20, dark places are linked to violence. "For the dark places of the land are full of the haunts of violence." We also have prophets using forest destruction as a metaphor for divine judgment. "The splendor of his forests and fertile fields it will completely destroy, as when a sick man wastes away." So right in the beginning, we have these two images of nature. One where nature is somewhere you go to be intimate with God. It's somewhere you go, you tend to nature. Nature is something that is a gift that you tend to, you make it better. But then you also have a more negative image where nature is a domain to be subdued or feared. But something these 2 points of view have in common is that nature is both separate from man and God. It is somewhere we were put, not created from. It is somewhere wild and untamed, as if us humans are not also wild and untamed. And it's certainly not somewhere we must try to live in harmony. We must try to find a balance, to live together, to be one with nature. In the late 1600s and early 1800s, you had the Enlightenment period. The Enlightenment period brought many changes to Europe, Western society, and the American colonies. There was a lot of progress in certain fields like science, technology, engineering, in part due to the scientific method now being brought to light and now being the mainstream way of thinking. You also had an increase in independent thought, now a place in society for religious tolerance. So now in society, you have this mix of the scientific method where things need to be tested, things need to be studied for them to be true. You have people questioning religion for the first time, and there's a lot of independent thought. So there's a huge celebration of skepticism, human nature, and science. Where science now replaced scripture, nature no longer became a mystery. It became something to study. It became something that needed to be classified and that needed to be mastered. In literature, you begin seeing an exploration of hierarchy between man, God, and nature. In Alexander Pope's essay on man, he depicts hierarchy as a natural and moral order. "Vast chain of being, which from God began, nature's ethereal human, angel, man. Beast, bird, fish, insect, what no eye can see, no glass can reach. From infinite to thee, from thee to nothing." This quote is essentially listing out the hierarchy of man, nature, and God, where God's on top, then man, then animals, and all things that come from nature. A year later, in 1735, scientist Carl Linnaeus published the first edition of Systema Naturae, which was a revolutionary work because it was the first piece of work that classified nature. It started classifying the natural world the way we see it today. Although this work may not be considered literature as we know it, it organized species into different hierarchies. The message from this era was clear. Nature was something to be studied, to be categorized. Nature could be known, named, and organized. After the Enlightenment era, you have the Romantic era in literature, which coincides with the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. So as cities start to grow, as pollution and industry start to grow, people are now turning to nature as a place of rest and as a place to be restored. In nature, they're now looking for something pure, for something wild and sublime. In lines composed a few miles above Tintern Abbey, William Wordsworth depicts nature as a living thing that can morally transform the observer. I have felt a present that disturbs me with the joy of elevated thoughts, a sense sublime, of something far more deeply interfused, whose dwelling is the light of setting suns, and the round ocean and the living air, and the blue sky in the mind of man. Nature was no longer a machine. It was something that could heal you, that could elevate you. John Keats' Ode to Nightingale reflects the Romantic era's fascination with nature as a source of transcendence, beauty, and escape from human suffering. Thou wast not born for death, immortal bird. No hungry generations tramp thee down. The voice I hear this passing night was heard in ancient days by emperor and clown. Perhaps the self-same song that found a path through the sad heart of Ruth when sick from home. She stood in tears amid the alien corn. The literature from the Romantic era started popularizing this idea that nature was good, it was pure, it was restorative, but it was still founded on this idea that nature and man were separate. You had to leave man, you had to leave society to enter this restorative natural state. So this begs the question, if wilderness is good, pure, restorative, what then is the value of society? Is it the opposite? Tainted, demanding, morally wrong? If romantic artists are now turning to nature as a place for spiritual restoration, is society or is man a place of spiritual destruction? Is it the complete moral opposite? In this era of literature, you have the idea that society has risen in contrast to nature, contradicting its peaceful and renewing qualities with those of destruction. So although we have a much more positive depiction of nature in the Romantic era, we're truly cementing the idea that man and nature are separate, are two different things. That man seeks nature for reprieve, foregoing the nature that is inside of him, that is part of him, and that has created everything in the world around him. The Romantic era didn't just transform the way we saw nature, it also laid the foundation for how we protect it to this day. By the late 19th century, a new realism emerged that erased a lot of the work done in the Romantic era. Influenced by Darwin's theory of evolution, naturalist writers now portray nature as indifferent to human hopes, to human dreams, and morality. Stephen Crane's The Open Book confronts this idea directly. When it occurs to a man that nature does not see him as important, he at first wishes to throw bricks at the temple. Jack London's To Build a Fire is another stark reminder of nature's indifference. The cold of space smote him, and he faced the death that had been lurking for him. In naturalism, nature is no longer a divine gift. It's no longer a place to restore yourself. Now it's a place where you must survive. You must respect it in order to survive. It's an ecosystem with its own rules, and your survival depends on your understanding of it and respecting those rules. This perspective dismantled human exceptionalism, essentially telling us that we are no longer special. We need to adapt to nature just like everything else. In 1872, off the tail end of the Romantic era and the beginning of the Victorian era, President Ulysses S. Grant established the world's first national park in the modern sense, Yellowstone National Park in the United States of America. The romantic reverence for wilderness influenced the creation of protected parks all over the world. Countries in Europe, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand soon followed the American lead in setting aside protected areas of natural beauty. The naturalist view and the protection of ecological areas around the world sets the stage for modern ecological thought, where nature is beautiful. It's something that should be protected because it is so beautiful, but nature is also something that should be feared for what it can do to us, how it can harm us. So now we have fear, which transforms itself into control. This is where we get pesticides and animal culls and human beings thinking they know better than nature. And our admiration for nature's beauty then lends itself to protection, ultimately separating man from wild. The 20th century brought both environmental awareness and ecological crisis, and literature also depicted this shift. The global warming of our world brought an entirely different perspective. Now we're asking ourselves, how did we get to this? How did we get here? What thoughts and actions have created such destruction? There is a lot of literature nowadays that depicts the relationship with the environment and different ecological thought, but I'm going to bring to light 3 different quotes. In Silent Spring, Rachel Carson warns us of ecological collapse, with the haunting observation, in nature, nothing exists alone. Margaret Atwood's Oryx and Crake portrays a genetically engineered world where wild nature exists mostly in controlled environments. Nature is to zoos as God is to churches. We also have the emergence of Indigenous writers, where writers like Robin Wall Kimmerer in Braiding Sweetgrass challenge human-centered narratives entirely. In the Indigenous worldview, humans are no more important than other species. Our stories have taught us a dichotomous worldview, a fear of nature lending itself to control, manipulation, abusing our resources, and collapsing life around the world, and admiration for its beauty, separating the beautiful world from the one man created. Now, with the increasing use of social media, of technology, people using social media to connect with other people, at work, we're all just sitting on our computers all day at work. Nature is now something that we need to reconnect with. We need to regrow our relationship with nature. We can use literature, like all art, to depict the story that we want to depict. We can imagine different worlds. We can imagine dystopian worlds where our environment is totally toxic. We can imagine the separation of man and nature completely, like in Brave New World. But we can also write happy endings. We can also write hopeful worlds where human beings have flourished and we live in harmony with the land. Nature has influenced literature and art in every area of humanity because creation is intrinsic to life and to art. Nature creates life as life creates art. So the question remains, in the stories we write today, are we going to be writing ourselves as part of nature or as separate from nature? What is the story that we are going to tell for our future? If you're interested in this kind of commentary, subscribe to my channel and head over to my Medium account where I write articles on very similar topics. Thanks for watching.